Hi! I love that I'm doing another one of these already. I feel like I'm going through books so fast this year, and really it's like mainly because of audiobooks. Even though I'm driving really far every day, something good is coming out of it. So here we go. Here's some more books that I read and some more books that I'm currently reading. So last time I talked about how I was currently listening to Daisy Jones and the Six on audiobook. Since then I have finished it and I really enjoyed it, like way more than I expected when I started listening to it. When I started listening to it, it was really interesting because it is about this band in the 70s and just how they came to be, their story. And it is told through each one of their perspectives. So Daisy Jones and the 6 other people in the band. So I'm listening to 7 different perspectives, and I didn't know how they would intertwine, and I didn't know how I would feel for any of these characters. I wasn't sure how that was gonna go, but Taylor Jenkins Reid is a wonderful writer, and she took me on a journey, and it was really lovely. Especially towards the end, just being able to like feel what the characters were feeling. Everybody had their own sort of storyline. A lot of them were more emphasized than the others. Overall, I just thought it was a fun ride and I would recommend it. I didn't love it as much as the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but if you liked it, I think that you would still really enjoy the writing style of Daisy Jones and the Six. The next book that I read led me to one of my new favorite authors, and that is Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson. It was really good. I listened to this one on audiobook as well, and it just doesn't read like a young adult novel, even though it is about young adults. It's just like, it's written so well. Tiffany D. Jackson is so good. Okay, Claudia is the main character of the book, and she is trying to find Monday, and Monday went missing. Monday is her best friend in the whole wide world, and she knows that she does not come from the best family life ever, but she doesn't think anything crazy, because if there was something crazy happening, Monday would have told her. I had one of these like best friendships, and this person is still my best friend, like till now. Like I met her in high school and she became my absolute best friend. So I definitely feel for this relationship, and it was so refreshing hearing about a best friend relationship and like how soul sinking it could be, and like how much you care for that person. It was really awesome delving into that sort of relationship and just exploring a relationship and exploring the fact that once you're in any sort of relationship, best friendship or significant other relationship, that person could define what you're doing day to day. So then when they're missing, you're like, who am I? So Claudia is trying to find herself while Monday is missing, while also trying to find Monday because she's made such an impact on her life, and nobody really seems to care where Monday is, and it's like eating away at her. And it is such a powerful book in so many different ways. It was kind of terrifying. Tiffany D. Jackson is really good at making real situations seem absolutely terrifying, which I read another one of her books too that I'm going to talk about, but it was a really good book, and I highly recommend it if you have not read it yet. I know that she also has a book out called Grown, and that is on my list. I really enjoyed the books that I read by her. The next book that I read is the other book by her, which was actually her debut novel called Allegedly. This is one of my new favorite books. It's about this girl who allegedly killed a baby when she was 9 years old. And if that doesn't automatically put you into like, I need to read this book, I need to see what this is about. I have never heard of a more like surprising premise in my life, and she delivered on it. She really delivered on it. So she allegedly killed this baby when she was 9 years old. This entire time you're trying to figure out the story, the actual real story, because this girl is kind of an unreliable narrator, because she was in this situation when she was 9 years old where she's still picking up the pieces and trying to figure it out. But also, she's telling you as a narrator that she knows exactly what happened. She was in baby jail for 6 years, and now she is in a group home, and in this group home situation, she becomes pregnant. So now this case reopens because she cannot keep her baby unless she tells everybody that she did not kill a baby when she was 9 years old. It is wild. It is such a trip. And you can tell how Tiffany D. Jackson kind of interwove the unreliable narrator sort of thing between Monday's Not Coming and Allegedly. Like, she definitely took pieces of Allegedly and interwove them into Monday's Not Coming. That, oh my god, Allegedly was so, again, terrifying, but like even more terrifying than Monday's Not Coming, because it was like so dark throughout the entire thing. Like it was so dark and so trippy, and oh my god, it was crazy, and I loved it because the writing was also so good. Like it wasn't just shock factor, it was like, man, some of these things can be real life situations, and that's why it's terrifying. And also it was just written so incredibly well. I loved it. Allegedly is one of my new favorite books. Again, highly recommend. The next book I read a physical copy of, and that was Eat a Peach. This is another one that I told you I was currently reading, and my last one, I'm trying to find the physical copy that I have of it, but you're gonna see a picture over here anyway, and I know that it's a bigger book that's a little bit harder to get off of my bookshelf. Oh, you know what? It's right here. Eat a Peach by David Chang. This is David Chang's memoir. He is a renowned chef, and it's about him, you know, just talking about how he became a chef and his first few restaurants, and then his mental health throughout the entire thing. It was really refreshing hearing about his mental health and how he dealt his different restaurants, and how he felt like he could have handled every situation better as a manager, and his faults and his flaws, and where he feels like he can still do better, and where he felt like he got an edge as opposed to some other people that did not, that probably could have deserved a better chance. Hearing about his relationships with other chefs and just the camaraderie that they have between them, I thought that it was really interesting. I love all the different cooking shows. I love Top Chef and Hell's Kitchen and like all the different documentaries about cooking. I think that it's really interesting and such an interesting trade. I don't know, I loved it. I really did. Part 2 of the book wasn't linear, and he does state that. He's like, the second part of the book is jumbled. Like, and it was, and it was just like different stories on and off, and it was fine. It just didn't flow as quickly as the first part, but I really enjoyed the entire thing. I thought it was really interesting to read, so if you are interested in any of those like chef type things, I would definitely read it. A lot of it was based in New York City too, and I live on Long Island, so I'm really close to the city, so anything that's like based over there, I'm always more inclined to read because I like hearing about a place that I live so close to. The next one was Weight of the Stars by Kay Ingram. I heard a lot of people talk about this, and I think this is one of those things where just because a lot of people talk about it doesn't mean that I should have read it, because it's, I don't know, I thought that like based on what everybody was saying, it was a book that I would have really enjoyed, and maybe I would have enjoyed it more if I read it all in one go, because I feel like that's the type of book it is. It was very fast paced, but I read it in like a week span where I could have read it in a day. This book is about a girl that lives in a trailer park with her brother James and his baby. They are clear outsiders from everybody else that lives in their high school life, but they formed a sort of group of outsiders, and this book is based on that group of outsiders and this new girl that comes to town that is a clear outsider, and one of the teachers is like, hey, can you please just like be kind to this girl and make her feel welcome. This new girl, Alexandria, was the baby of a woman that went up to space in this scout program, which is a private version of NASA. The main character is really interested in space and is really interested in Alexandria, and they form a bond, and that's pretty much the story. Is just trying to have Alexandria fit into this group of misfits, and also helping Alexandria try to communicate with her mother in space. It all seems like something that I would have really enjoyed. It's just like, it felt very one-dimensional. I couldn't get a good grasp of any of these characters. I think being one-dimensional was a product of it being so fast-paced. So maybe it wasn't necessarily a bad thing for most people that read this. And like, it was okay. It was a good story. I didn't feel like I could connect with any of the characters at all, and I wanted to. Like, there was this one character, Ahmed, where like I would have loved an entire book about him. Each of the characters in itself were really interesting, but I didn't get to delve deep, and that's what made me sad. I didn't love the writing. The main character let out a breath that she didn't know that she was holding, and it just, I don't know. It was alright. It wasn't my favorite. Maybe I'll read more of Kay Ingram's books. I liked that this was more of a contemporary read that turned into science fiction, but it was like barely any science fiction. I don't do fantasy at all, but I love science fiction, and I love contemporary. So if there's any other books that you would suggest of Kay Ingrams, let me know and maybe I will read them. And then the last book that I'm going to talk about that I recently read was Felix Ever After, and Felix Ever After was lovely. This book is about a trans boy in New York and just his life in high school, and it's like a private high school and it's an art high school, and it's about his life, and it's about the people surrounding him, and it's about him learning more about his identity. And it was really, really lovely because all of the characters had flaws, and I love that they had flaws and that the main character was so completely open. It dealt with so many situations that were handled so well, just like a deep dive into conversations that happened subtly, and then I listened to it via audiobook, so like after listening to them you were just like, wow, this was deep. And like, it didn't seem like it was going to be deep at first. It was just a normal conversation, and then you get through it and you're like, oh wow, they said something really powerful there, and I wasn't even thinking that. I was preparing for that. A very powerful, well done young adult read that I thought was really, really interesting, and really delved into this culture in New York that a lot of the rest of the country I don't think has gotten to yet. Hearing all about Pride was just like incredible and powerful and reminiscent of just like seeing Pride happen all the time. It was great. So those are all the books that I've recently read, and now for the books that I'm currently reading. I think I said this in my previous video. Right now I'm trying to have an ebook, a physical book, and an audiobook going at all times. That way I can just switch back and forth and I won't be bored. My physical book that I'm currently reading is In the Dream House. I'm almost halfway through. It's a memoir just about this girl's romantic life and how she switched from boys to discovering this relationship with this one specific girl, and it turns out very messy. I'm getting into the portion where you're like, oof, this girl is real dangerous, but I don't know if it's because of a mental illness yet or whatever the case is. So it's interesting so far. The writing style is really interesting. It's really beautiful. I've already underlined a lot of things so far, and I just love memoirs in general, so it's a good one so far. The ebook that I'm reading is still Is This Anything by Jerry Seinfeld. It's just like, it's a lot of his bits, so I've literally just been scrolling through them if me and my boyfriend are watching TV, or if I'm waking up in the morning, or if I'm going to bed at night. Just like something little to swipe through. They're fun and funny, but it's nothing like substantial, so I'm just kind of whipping through it. And then the audiobook that I'm listening to is The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. I got 40% of the way through this last year on ebook, and I'm still thinking about it. My issue is I'm not good with fantasy. Like I said before, it's just like I have to really, really, really pay attention, and if I am not completely immersed in the story, I'm not gonna get through it. And listening to this via audiobook, if this was my first time becoming familiar with the story, I would be completely lost right now. I have to really, really, really concentrate on fantasy. But it's nice because, again, it takes place in New York City. So that part of it I'm really engaged in, and all the characters are human characters and they're in a world that feels familiar to me. So that's something that's really getting me through, and N.K. Jemisin's writing is really, really interesting, so I'm really enjoying it. It's just I wanted to start it up again via audiobook because I had already read half the story, and I felt like if I started up the ebook again I would have to like read through the entire ebook again. But I do really like the premise of the story. It basically talks about New York City as a breathing entity, and all the big cities are breathing entities, and New York is in danger. So it's going through all the 5 boroughs, and actual people are the boroughs, and they're people that are going to help save the city. And that's it. Those are the books that I'm reading. Let me know any of the books that you're currently reading. I'm really enjoying the amount of content that I've been able to get through so far this year. If there's any books that you suggest, let me know. If you have any thoughts about the books that I read, let me know. And I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.